Welcome, lords and ladies of Las Vegas, to another scene in Fortune and Darkness Glittering Gulch. It's summer in Las Vegas. The heat is oppressive. The sun bakes the clay of the earth until it cracks. But there on the strip, underneath all the glittering lights of Las Vegas, there the cracks are hidden underneath asphalt and playing cards that have made their way into the street after being bought in hotel gift shops. It is a place where everything is distracting, the noise is constant, and it's very hard to tell what time of day it is because even when the sun is down, the lights are blinding. And that is where we find ourselves today. We find ourselves on the strip of Las Vegas, where, like a small oasis in the desert, a Cathane tea shop, Eternity, sits open late because, well, you never know when somebody's going to need a good cup of tea. And we turn to our players. There, we'll start with, well, a rare sight in Las Vegas, especially these days, a handsome man, at least in his mortal main, his fey main. Well, we're just upping the ante at that point. Please, Andrew, tell me what your character is doing.
It is the middle of the day, as you've described, and this gentleman is making his way towards this place. He's driven by it a few times, and just something about it has been really calling to him. And he's finally made some time, going through the motions of what this person has been doing with their lives up to this point, which has been very advantageous to the newly arrived she. He has decided to come in and take a look firsthand, kind of like gliding through the thin, very thin veil of dust that sort of blows in from the desert every now and then in Vegas, almost imperceptible, but just very, very slightly dusting his beautiful suit. And as he gets close, he's going to go see what all this is about, what this feeling is.
Eternity is decorated in sort of a Rococo chic. It's not antique furniture because, well, antiques tend to be very, very expensive and hard to maintain, but it is well crafted. While it may not be old and aged and dusty, it is still something beautiful to look at, with beautifully carved arches in the wood and beautiful fabric patterns in the upholstery. There's a lovely oak counter behind which stands Barnabas, the young Boggin male, standing in front of you, and he's setting out stuff for a tea service. It's a very nice teapot. If you look behind him, you'll notice that there's actually several teapots for various customers who come in to have their own pot. There's matching cups, and he looks up and greets you with a smile. Sort of tilts his head. Oh, I thought all of you had taken to hiding.
That's what I understand. He says, and he's looking around, and every so often as he's sort of scanning the room, he'll just briefly make eye contact with this individual and continues on, all the while sort of like just meandering closer to the to where the boggin is stationed behind the counter.
You thirsty? It's a little hot for warm tea, but I can brew up something a little better cold, I suppose. Hibiscus is nice this time of year.
Let me think about that.
Well, make yourself comfortable. If you're having a rough time of things, there's a
Do I, do
balefire
I
in the.
do I
Huh?
look like I'm having a rough time of things? Is that standing out to you?
He just sort of gives a shrug. It's tough times. It's kind of hard to tell who's having a rougher time of things these days, except for those Slua. They seem to know something.
Is that what you've heard?
That's what I've seen.
Mm. Maybe you could elaborate.
Well, he sort of. I've been here a long time, kid. And as he says, kid, you'll notice he definitely looks younger than you. But, and he just continues to clean and sort of fuss with the tea set he's working with. I've seen things in their heyday when this place was glamorous and beautiful and filled with hopes and dreams, and I've seen it change. And as it's changed, well, the average Joe just starts looking emaciated after a while. He sets down the cup and leans forward. Now, the Slew are generally noodly fellas, but they don't have that thinned outlook that some of us are getting.
Or maybe they're holding out.
That's the assumption. But trying to get them to talk to anybody outside of their own kith and kin, well, he picks up another cup and gets back to cleaning. He needs to keep his hands busy, it seems. Well, trying to get any information out of them, slow doing so. You got to earn their trust, apparently, and nobody on the outside seems to be able to do that.
Maybe no one's asking the right questions.
Possibility. Maybe we should set a puka on them. Those fluffy ones love to ask questions.
Well, that probably won't be me. He sort of like reaches out and almost like goes to touch something just in the room nearby, and then kind of catches himself and brings his hand back.
Well, make yourself at home. Feel free to order something. And like I said, if you find that you need a little help, got a balefire in back. It's not a big one, but it's there.
I'll keep that in mind.
Now we pan the camera towards our resident swan maiden, Sun-hee. What are you doing?
Comes walking through the front door after a long day of soup kitchens, charity work, and people screaming at her in random, might as well be tongues at this point, in the homeless encampments. Comes walking in, bright, effervescent, looking for all the world like everything is going to be okay. Her wings, though, are a little drooping, the feathers needing a little bit of upkeep. Her eyes, while bright and bushy, do have the signs of tiredness starting to creep in. And she will come up to the counter, take a seat. I need an Earl Grey hot.
And Barnabas just sort of looks at you, looks at the sun still shining through his windows. You sure you don't want some ice cubes on the side?
I'll be fine. I'll get some bottled water on the go.
And he goes and heads towards the back to start tea prep. And as he does, you find yourself in the tea house with a she.
Yeah, Anders is sort of like during all of this, he briefly just sort of turns almost in the exact same pose that is in this picture right here, and just gives that look for about half a second at the newcomer, and then sort of turns back and goes back to poking around. And so he's killing time. Doesn't say anything.
Was Alma right? Are you here to kill me?
Excuse me?
Nothing. It's a joke. But what brings you down from the high heavens?
Well, that's a funny question and a story in and of itself, I'm sure.
Oh, I love stories.
Well, when I have time, I'll be sure to tell you.
Low on time.
Maybe. It might take more. I don't know.
Where are you going?
Clearly, I'm trying to find the bathroom at the moment.
The bathroom?
I'm joking. He turns and finally gives like the full attention at this point, and just sort of shoves his hands in his pockets.
She's she's not, like the pinnacle of she beauty, but she's something of a looker herself. Um has that kind of captivating quality to her. Sitting there just smiling, looking at him.
Hot tea on a day like this doesn't hardly seem right.
Well, tradition in my family is hot soup, hot day.
Was that a fact?
Hmm. Not to mention, well, I'm going to need the energy. There's a lot to do.
What is it that you do, if you don't mind my asking?
Mostly charity work, odd jobs, and trying to get to the bottom of every terrible thing that could be going on right now so I can stay alive.
That seems to be he sort of gestures to the back counter, where Barnabas is not there currently, and says, that seems to be a running concern.
Are you new in town?
Could say that.
You know, I have a friend who, if you meet her, you and her will trade the most interesting verbal repartee, but I don't think anything would be said.
As to imply that my words carry no weight.
No, as to imply that you're being shrewd with your hand, which is fine. We're in Vegas. Play it close to your chest.
He doesn't seem to have a quick response to that. He just sort of like quirks a brow, almost smirks, and then nods, says, fair enough. Fair enough.
You'll find she looks at she motions at her sundress. I don't have any sleeves, so nothing up there. I prefer to play with my hands open. Mostly because I think getting information out right now is the important thing to do.
Why's that?
Well, if you're new in town, or maybe word hasn't gotten to the fortresses that the rest of the nobles have fled to, apparently the nights are getting longer.
As you say this, Barnabas comes back out with a small silver tray. On it is a brewing pot of tea and a teacup and some complimentary shortbread, and he sets it out in front of you. So, it's true, the gossip I've been hearing about what happened the other night?
Oh, absolutely. If the gossip is that the entire strip went dark and a bunch of nasty, awful creatures came pouring into the streets.
He just gives a shake of his head. Be a terrible thing to see things turn in that direction.
Any idea why they were showing up?
Beats me. Maybe with the shining hosts making themselves scarce except for the most grand of occasions. Maybe it's just as well they set out a welcome mat to our cousins.
Could be. I'm really hoping that's not the case.
He puts his hand to his finger to his mouth as you hear the bells to the shop jingle, and almost as if they're just coming out of the woodworks these days, another she enters. She's not dressed like this. She's actually got a sort of like nice bolo sort of thing, the short jacket, and her makeup is just impeccably done. And her legs just seem to go on forever. Perhaps the only thing that, she's absolute perfection, but just how long her legs seem almost mar the effect of feminine perfection. And roll me a streetwise perception.
If there is a Discord, I'm not part of it.
Oh, there is a Discord, and I don't know why you're not part of it. I'll send you a link. Nope. If you've just got dice somewhere or something, you can roll there until I get you in here.
Well, the curse of Alice strikes again. I really am going to play a character with perception 5 one day.
Let's see.
What is it? Perception.
Perception streetwise.
Oh. I don't have that.
Okay. You can roll perception at difficulty 7.
Fail.
Okay.
No botch, but fail.
Perhaps it's because neither of you have a particular interest in social media. But oh my gosh, I just forgot the bee name I gave to my stupid boggin.
Barnabas.
Thank you. But Barnabas seems more interested than the two of you in this woman who's entered. And she kind of gives a very friendly but vapid smile at him. I've been meaning to check out the place. Sorry it's taken me so long. She pulls out her phone, takes a selfie. There really should be more business in our places. And she takes a look at both of you and just sort of gives the sort of glance up and down. New in town?
Is it that obvious? He smiles.
Well, typically well, those of us who have good sense made their way either closer to home or someplace a little less dusty, she says. And she like stands up and walks over to Anders and just like dusts, like invisible specks of dust off his shoulder.
I've never been known for sense.
Well, sounds like we're going to get along just fine. And she turns to Barnabas. Barnabas, darling, do you mind if I leave some flyers here? And Barnabas just sort of, he doesn't seem to be able to talk in her presence and just gives a sort of like nod of acceptance. Thanks, you're a doll. And she pulls out like a stack of like half flyers and leaves them on the counter. I'd love to stay and have a tea, but well, I've got at least 4 more businesses to hit up today. There's a club off the strip that some frog puka owns. There's a antique store I need to visit. Oh, some other club. You understand. But I'll make sure to give you a mention to my followers. And without even so much as like addressing Sunhee, she just makes her exit. And yeah.
That was rude. I like it.
All right.
Very fun. He dusts off his shoulder again.
Would you like to look at the flyers she's left behind, either of you?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
The flyers are for a new arcade experience opening up by a company called DreamX. And there's a logo. It looks like almost a Rorschach butterfly with a rainbow X printed over it, the word dream. And it's bringing in a new, like I said, an arcade virtual reality experience called AU. And it lists the opening about a week and a half from today.
So I have a week and a half to save up enough money for however much this ends up costing.
I don't know if this is quite my scene.
You never know. It could be fun.
I'm not quite familiar with the concept yet, but I'm getting there.
Arcades or fun?
Fun. It's a joke. Relax.
I know. You have a very dry wit. Something I've come to expect from members of the upper class.
Well, I'm sure that this climate suits me perfectly then.
Well, dry, desert, filled with filthy rich people. I'm sure you'll be right at home.
Do you know this person? He asked Barnabas.
He gives a nod as he sort of moves the sheaf of flyers over to the register. Yeah, her name's Alicia something. Her family's famous before she swooped in and snatched up the oldest. Alicia. I don't know, one of those names, like Hilton or something. But she's got an Instagram. What's it called? Oh yeah, blink and you'll miss it. He says, and he pulls out a phone, and it's an old looking phone, generations behind, just barely a smartphone, and he opens up Instagram, and he holds it up. This is her, and for the most part, it's just a bunch of like glamour selfies. It's like, oh, here's my makeup routine videos, that sort of thing. There's a couple of short videos promoting DreamX's AU project, and an announcement that in the near future they're actually going to release it for home consoles for those who can't afford going into the DreamX facility.
She definitely looks like an Alicia.
He just sort of cocks his head. She does, doesn't she?
Hmm.
And he points to the teapot he brought out earlier. You know, if you leave it sitting too long, it's going to get bitter.
Oh, right. Sorry. She stops humming a tune and switches over to pouring herself some tea and sipping it. Just just a lot to think about, you know?
You said there were beasties roaming the street. Any idea what they're up to? What's going on?
They were destroying a power generator, threatening to eat me. We didn't really get a good idea of what was going on in particular because the nuclear power plant was melting down. But fortunately, thanks to the brave work of our Lewis Robinson, we were able to save the day.
You had me until Lewis Robinson.
Lewis Robinson
giving that at all any sort of proper like
is from the Disney movie Meet the Robinsons, and was a scientist, really brilliant, and fortunately, we had one in our group.
Just sort of looks over at Andrews as from one lost person to another.
I feel like there's way more danger involved in this semblance of a story you're putting out than you're giving.
Oh no, the nuclear power plant was melting down. That is very dangerous. And I almost got eaten. And someone blew up a generator. But all that was part of my story.
One of these is much, much worse than the other two. How did it get there? Wait, was this connected?
We're pretty sure it was connected, and I mean, we found chimerical papers stuffed into the vents that just read, you know, the nights are getting longer, and oh yeah, change begins now, and then the papers would just explode into flame, which fortunately they were in the cooling part of the reactor, so there was plenty of water, and we didn't die.
I see.
I think it was all in a day's work. Pretty terrifying at the time, but no point in worrying about it right now. So many other emergencies and crises going on.
It seems like this would be the more pressing of the emergencies and crises going on.
No, we fixed a nuclear power plant, so that's the least pressing. The bigger pressing is that all the monsters that appeared on the street disappeared.
When you fixed the reactor?
Yeah, we fixed the reactor. As I
No,
said, we had Lewis Robinson with us, so that's why I
when,
said it's the least pressing.
but I'm saying when you fixed the reactor, all of the bad things disappeared.
No, they went into hiding while we were fixing the reactor. That took a long time.
I should hope so.
And then when we got back to the strip, power was restored. All the manners of beasties and monsters that we ran into were gone. And we're pretty sure that they just slipped back into Las Vegas somewhere and are roaming around, potentially getting ready to eat us, which is why I've been looking for them.
That reads. He sort of like pinches his brow for a second and then puts his hand on the counter and takes one of the flyers and sort of stuffs it in his pocket.
Strange seeing two she in a day.
That and following just the other day, I met a night puka prince thing.
He just sort of looks. I didn't know we had nobility roaming amongst us freely.
I didn't realize we had a frog puka who goes by Sir, Your Lordship, Thy Worship, in etc., etc., etc. But he runs a venue.
How many puka have you met before?
Enough. This is the first one I met that has claimed titles.
Does he insist on being called all of those titles?
He accepts Sir, as far as I saw.
I see.
As far as puka go, he seemed to be a very straight shooter.
Which means the barrel of the gun was definitely curved.
Well, he has a sword, so I mean, there could be a story behind all of it. And I really would like to find out the story. And he's really funny. You have no idea. He just has a great sense of humor.
Boy, kids. This gentleman does not look to be over 21. Like he is very fresh faced, and but he talks in a way curmudgeonly grandfathers would when he says kids.
Oh, come on. He was a delight. Once you meet him, I think you're going to like him too.
I'm sure I'll be delighted by whatever nonsense he tells me.
It's wonderful nonsense. He's very old school too.
Probably not as old school as I am.
Kissing maidens' hands.
Ah, that's sort of old school, he says. He just sort of shakes his head. You sure you don't want some hibiscus tea?
No, thank you.
Ice water? Something?
No, I'll be all right. He sounds like a very nice guy, he says to Sunhee.
Definitely is. Oh, I never got around to it. I'm sorry. Do Sunhee. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance.
I'm sure the pleasure's all mine. My name is Anders. Anders Carlisle.
Anders Carlisle. All right.
How
So,
many, how many people have you ever met with that name? It's probably easy to remember.
not hard to forget, especially given, well, never mind. It's just we don't see a lot of she around here. Not anymore, at least.
Yeah, that's
Not a lot of nobles in general.
been made abundantly clear.
The lights begin to flicker, and that sort of like buzzing, and barely noticeable since it is daytime, but it's there. And just outside, you hear a couple of people sort of like, "What? What's going on?"
I'm going to step out for a moment. Um, leaving my tea here, but I will be back. Hopefully, she says, heading towards the door.
Anders sort of slowly, like, as she gets up and hurriedly makes her way towards the door. He's much more slow. He's sort of like walking in that direction, and he's got like he sort of produces his billfold in his hand and puts a few bucks on the counter next to Soon He's tea, and just sort of makes his way over to the window instead to look.
As you look in the direction people are pointing, you notice the strip, like Las Vegas, has those big screens announcing things and stuff. There's a plethora of marquees, and you notice that some of them have started to flicker, and people are looking up and pointing at a rather large one, just in the direction of God damn it, I can never remember the name of that street. Anyways, they're pointing in a direction of a very large marquee, and as you turn and look, you notice the nights grow longer. The time for change is now, and it blinks. 1, 2, 3, and all of a sudden, all the bulbs within the marquee start to pop, and just sparks fly down from the ground, and people are scurrying to get away from it quickly as the screen actually starts to towards the ground.
Not again.
Someone's got a very, very developed sense of theatrical nonsense.
Dangerous theatrical nonsense. Well, first the nuclear power plant and now this.
Well, hopefully this one's not tied to a melting reactor. Seems
One would hope.
Barnabas has also walked over and sort of looks up. They're very blatant. This isn't a rallying cry. This is a warning.
a warning or a taunt.
A threat.
Whatever it is, they're certain of themselves.
I don't think police response time is very quick. I'm going to go take a look.
He just one moment before you go, and he heads to the back of his of his shop, and he returns a moment later with 2 small to-go cups, and just in case you get thirsty out there. And roll me perception kenning.
Perception kenning. All right.
Okay, that's 3 successes for you. Andrew, you want to roll as well?
I suppose I can.
Okay.
Am I in here? I don't think so. For some reason, I only see vampire and werewolf under the
Yeah,
Vegas.
you have to get the permissions.
That's weird. I think you can roll in general.
Okay.
Okay.
This minis.
Nope. You aren't. There's glamour. You know that. Even without successes. But soon you know that it is spring glamour coming off of it. And he gives that sort of like conspiratorial wink of like, in case you get thirsty out there. And from the context clues of that, you can figure that if you drink this, it will heal you if you get injured.
She'll thank him and reach into her purse. For the other tea.
It's been taken care of.
Oh.
Let me know if you find anything interesting out there.
I will. And wish me luck.
Yeah, good luck.
So, if Andrew sees that soon he takes the cup, he will take the other one and pass a few more bucks along the way, and then
Barnabas gives like a shake of the hand. No, you may need it.
fair enough. And then he steps out back into the sunlight.
There's sort of a no small amount of chaos erupting in the street from the direction of the fallen marquee. There's dust and debris scattering upwards, and you hear in the far distance the sound of sirens getting ready, approaching to respond. There are a couple of people who have injuries that they're tending to. There's confusion and chaos and fear. You can feel this fear resonating in your very soul. Something is coming.
Well, if it's resonating in our soul and something just happened here, maybe there's a magical trail to be followed. May I make a perception plus skinning roll to see if I can pick up anything?
Yeah.
All right. I find this to be an important roll, so I'm going to spin the willpower for an auto success.
Okay. Okay. You feel this, like the heat of this dark glamour buzzing in the air. And it's pulling you closer towards the marquee. There gathered are 3. Well, you can tell they're fae, but you're not entirely sure what they are. But there they wait around a young woman, probably mid-20s, bachelorette party. You can tell because it's bride-to-be is plastered across her shirt. She has a pink crown on, and they surround her with smiles on their faces. She's injured. It's very obvious her leg is broken.
Soon he will approach. So what are you three up to?
The three gentlemen lift their heads, and opalescent eyes and skin almost as smooth as marble stares at her. They don't seem outwardly menacing. They seem beautiful. We're just here to help. And the young woman seems to be breathing more rapidly as the pain is just sort of sending her into a panic. And as she tries to sort of like move her leg, you start noticing glamour begin to flicker around her, almost like electrified fireflies sort of swirling together.
Leave her alone.
And one of the gentlemen sort of steps between her and Sunhee. Now, we got here first.
And we got here second, but I'm still going to stop you.
Well, that should be fun to see. How is one little feathery thing going to stop the four of us?
Through persuasive arguments and hopefully appealing to your better nature?
They all laugh, and their laughter is almost musical in nature. It's pleasant to hear, and that pleasant sound amidst all this chaos sends a sort of cold chill in your stomach.
I'm not afraid of you.
Oh, we don't need you to be afraid of us, says the second one. We just need you to pay attention to us. And the two of them are just smiling at you in this sort of graceful way, this charming, genteel, manipulative way.
Anders has sort of been like edging closer. He's got a pretty cautious expression on his face,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of caught the little bit of interaction that they've had, and just sort of like reaches out and puts a hand on Sunhee's shoulder and says, "You got a big heart, but numbers game isn't in our favor at the moment."
Well, they're not going to stop me from helping her, she says, trying to push past him.
The three of them link arms to push back. And just one moment, I need to double check one thing before I get going. I know this is taking a moment, but believe me, it would take longer if I had to do this with paper. Where are those sons of bitches? Okay. Both of them smile and let's see. and tell you politely but firmly, we've got this handled. You have to beat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 a manipulation. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting my fucking words. A manipulation expression of 8 and 3 successes on the other. It looks like
All right.
persuasion, manipulation, persuasion. Is that a thing? No. Okay. Anyways,
So it's manipulation expression.
yeah.
And do I get my bonuses for my chimerical dress?
Are you wearing it?
Yes.
Then yes.
So that is 7.
I need 8 successes. Is that what I heard?
Yep. 8 to you get 2 rolls because you got 2 people that you're trying to sort of ignore their charismatic manipulations.
Gotcha.
All right. I'll spend the willpower for the first roll, and then I will just roll away on the second. I might get it.
Yes, and no willpower expenditures because it's a surprise attack.
Okay, then no willpower. What is the difficulty for it?
Standard diff, but you gotta beat their numbers.
All right, here we go. Did not beat the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Do I? And I make. Oop, that's wrong thing. Second one. And I did not. You said difficulty 6, right?
Yep, standard diff.
All right, then I didn't beat the second one either.
Okay.
2 successes on the first roll, 4 on the second.
All right. Yeah, that doesn't beat the either of them either. There's something about them as they seem to close ranks on you. They're shining opalescent eyes and their marble skin. Something about them just seems grand. For the she, it almost seems like family. For those outside of the shining host, you just, as they bear down at you, the feeling of almost just not measuring up. They have looked at you and found you unimpressive. But behind them, the glamour continues to buzz. And while you may not be able to convince them to step aside, that doesn't take away from the nagging feeling that something is about to happen. And roll me a perception. No, I'm sorry, intelligence kenning. So you,
All right.
yeah. So you know that for sure what you know, both of you.
All right.
All right, good. And that's 2 successes. All right. As you're looking at this like the glamour gathering behind, what you're witnessing is a chrysalis. Of course it is. You've seen them before. And even amidst all the chaos and fear, you realize that is undeniably what is going on. Anders, it's very different from the chrysalis you experienced because, well, Arcadia and she are body snatchers, but still, this is the same amount of glamour as that sort of bottle rocket that should be going off. And the young woman with the broken leg, her features start to flicker a bit, and you notice horns appear and then flicker away. Her legs, her broken leg, looks like a hoof for a moment. Cloven hooves appear and flicker away as the glamour tries to assert itself. And the third creature reaches down and begins to stroke her hair. Shh, shh, shh. It'll be okay, he says.
What are you doing?
And he just says, as he continues to stroke her hair, and the flickering begins to change a little bit, and he goes, it's a surprise. And where her eyes were flickering to almost a wild green for her satyr self, you notice things start to change, and her eyes are also opals. The horns seem to grow smaller each flicker and her skin, instead of the ruddy appearance of satyr and their earthiness, no, it's marble white. And the first speaker says, like I said, there's 4 of us.
No, she says, reaching into her purse. Hand grasp, a very famous pistol that she pulls out, Walther P99. I might not be able to get past you, but I can stop this.
There's a laugh from behind the 2 in the blockade. You don't even know how.
Anders behind us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Anders sort of like looks over his shoulder.
As you look behind your shoulder, you hear the sirens coming in closer, and you start seeing the first flickers, the strobes of the police cars coming up, and you just turned to look away from a young woman pulling a gun out on a crowded public street to 3, well, what is going to look like 3 men trying to help a young woman.
Hey, we need to go. This is over with. We can't stop it.
Fine, she says, turning away, and I'm going to need to take a banality for that.
Okay. Well, do you take a no, you roll banality.
Oh, it's roll banality if your
Yeah.
antithesis happens? Okay.
Yeah.
So how does this work again? Because it's going to be the first time in a while.
You roll your banality difficulty, I want to say 9.
Okay.
And yeah, you take 1.
All right.
Yeah, it's temporary banality, not a dot. And yeah. And you didn't botch, you just failed, so it's not extra. But as you fight against your very nature, and the cold chill of banality makes that little nick in your soul, Anders, you can feel that wave, that cold wave, rush past and sort of settle in your companion.
He looks very just generally concerned, maybe not necessarily for his companion, just everything all at once. And if Sunhi is allowing, he's sort of like got his hand like around her arm, like trying to gently drag her away from the scene of a maybe crime in progress if he keeps that gun out. And he's just going to look over at the 4 hanging out over there, and he's going to look at them and he's going to say, we'll be seeing y'all again real soon.
And the young woman with the broken leg says, I hope so. In a voice that was very unlike her own.
Oh, are you new too?
And she gives a wink. Just got here. And You notice, like, her leg seems to be healing up as the other creature keeps stroking her hair. The more she changes, the more she heals. Until she just sort of slowly pulls herself up and gives a glance around. I was with 6 other women. And then she looks at the fallen Marquis. They should have learned to run in heels.
Anders is sort of like pulling Suni along in like a jog walk at this point as the police cars are starting to get real close up the sidewalk away from the Marquis.
She's allowing herself to be pulled along.
Once the cars sort of pass, he'll let her go. And just sort of like look back at the scene.
That's twice I couldn't have stopped something bad from happening.
Don't worry, it's early.
Yeah, she says, looking over at the crowd. But it seems the nights really are getting longer.
Well, you shouldn't linger on the punishment because there's a lot more in store.
I should get back to shelter. Probably took too long of a lunch break anyways.
Hey, are you all right?
No.
Are you gonna be all right?
I think so.
All right then. And he reaches into his pocket and as Bill Foley pulls out a business card and hands it to her. It's my number.
Thanks. Do you need mine?
Yeah.
She'll rattle it off. She doesn't have a business card.
He punches it in his phone. Slides it back in his pocket. Be careful out there.
I'm trying. But I think you're the one who has more to worry about.
Well, yeah.
Because the person who clogged up the power plant wasn't one of them. It was one of yours. Watch your back.
There is a brief flicker of, like, maybe not shock, but indignation for a second, and it passes really fast and says, I'll be all right. We'll figure it out. Let's get out of here, though. Before the cops ask questions.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
And he turns and begins making his way back towards the tea shop.
And I think this is a good place to end our scene. With the nights growing longer and the shadows of fear along with them. Thank you, players, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. We'll see you next time.